I stand before you as the keeper of ancient words. Words once spoken in the squares of Jerusalem, when the city still breathed the fragrance of incense and the smoke of sacrifice rose above the temple. Yet these words were not calm, they burned like fire and cut sharper than a sword. The prophet Jeremiah, weary and alone, stepped out before the people and said, "You cry, peace, peace. But there is no peace." His voice trembled not with fear, but with truth that tore his chest apart. He saw what others refused to see, when people proclaim peace while hatred and pride still smolder within. It is not peace, it is the preface to disaster. That picture of the past looks terrifyingly similar to today. People long for hope, for promises. And they found those who fed them. False prophets, dressed in clean robes, stood in the same streets, declaring, "The Lord gives us rest. The enemy will not come. We are saved." Their words flowed like honey, for they said exactly what the people wanted to hear. But beneath that honey was poison. For when you soothe your heart with all is well while the enemy stands at the gate, you are already doomed to ruin. A true prophet always walks against the current. Jeremiah was such a man. They threw him into a pit, they hunted him, they hated him. For truth is always a knife in the wound. He saw the city deceiving itself and cried out, "Do not believe those who say, peace." Is it not the same with us today? Look around, how many voices in the world echo those same words? How many politicians promise stability, security, a new era of peace? And how many of them know that behind closed doors, war is already being prepared? Here, in the first episode, the main conflict of the whole story is born, truth against illusion. On one side, the prophet, warning even if his words cut deep. On the other, the crowd, listening only to those who whisper what is pleasing. This is not just a biblical story. It is an archetype, repeated again and again. For what is peace in the mouths of rulers? Often nothing more than a narcotic word to calm the masses. Picture the scene, ancient Jerusalem. The sun sets, the city bathed in golden light. And above the noise of the marketplace rises the voice of the prophet. You say, "Peace, peace." But look at your hearts. There is no peace in them. Look at your neighbors, you despise them. Look at your king, he lies to you. Can there be peace where lies rule? That voice is not only of yesterday. It speaks now. And here I want to leave you with a question that takes the breath away. What if today's loud promises of peace are not a triumph of diplomacy, but a sign of the coming storm? For Jeremiah warned, when nations shout peace, in truth they already stand at the edge of the abyss. In the shadow of the temple stands another figure, the betrayer. Not always one man, but an image. Always the one who amplifies the sweet lies, who supports the false prophets. He says, "Calm yourselves. We are strong. Everything is under control." And it is his voice that proves fatal, leading people away from preparation, from prayer, from repentance. And I ask myself, does this betrayer not live among us today? Perhaps in a television broadcast, promising quick reconciliation. Perhaps in a treaty signed and hailed as historic. Perhaps even in our own inner voice that soothes us, "Nothing will happen. Don't worry." But the truth is harsh. When a heart too quickly believes in peace, it is not ready for the storm. I see this prophecy as a thread running through all generations. Peace, peace, but there is no peace. The phrase echoes like footsteps on an empty street. At first soft, then louder, then thunder. In this story, Jeremiah becomes the martyr of truth. He pays with his life for telling people, "Do not trust false peace." He becomes the symbol that true words always wound, but they alone can save. And when I look at our own time, I feel we stand in the same place. The word peace rings from high tribunes, but beneath it lies emptiness. History turns in circles. People want to hear what soothes them. But that soothing is the beginning of catastrophe. So in this first step I leave you with a troubling thought. Peace is not always a promise of good. Sometimes, it is a warning. And the next chapter will reveal how this trap repeated itself for centuries. For where kings promised peace, in the shadows armies already stood. Kings have always loved to speak of peace. For peace is a promise that soothes nations. People grow weary of fear and hunger for hope, and rulers know it. They know that a single declaration, peace will come, will make the crowd sigh with relief. Even if behind the throne the forges already hammer weapons. Imagine the archetype of this king. His throne is adorned with gold, yet his eyes are cold. He promises peace, but his hands drip with blood. And beside him always walks the shadow from the desert. It whispers, "Speak of peace. Promise them calm. While they sleep, you will prepare for war." This shadow is no mere image. It is the timeless spirit of illusion that has followed empires. It always appears where nations crave hope. It always appears where the word peace becomes a weapon of mass sedation. For there is nothing more dangerous than an enemy who convinces you he is your ally. History bears this out. Every empire had its peace. Egyptian pharaohs promised safety, but built it on the backs of slaves. Assyrian kings promised order, but their order rested on bleeding nations. Even rulers who cloaked themselves in religion spoke of peace with their lips, while in their hearts they craved domination. The shadow from the desert is the echo of a wind through the centuries. It whispers the same refrain, peace is a pause. Only silence before the storm. A dream in which the enemy sharpens his knife. This pattern is not only political, it is personal. When someone convinces themselves they have finally found calm, that is precisely when the trial comes. So it is with nations. When they trust too deeply in peace, they become defenseless. Here lies the central contrast of this episode, the king who promises, and the shadow that warns. One says, "Sleep peacefully, peace is near." The other whispers, "It is deception." They are leading you into a trap. And the viewer feels the clash, sweet reassurance against cold truth. But the most frightening thing is this: we choose to believe the king. We close our ears to the whisper of the shadow. For who wants to hear that behind peace lies war? Who wants to look into the abyss and see the inevitable storm? People demand promises. And rulers always provide them. Recall how in ancient times, soldiers were sent to war. First the people were told that the goal of war was peace. We march to war to establish peace. It sounded logical, but it was deadly. For peace in the mouths of kings was always the justification for war. The shadow has witnessed it all. It saw empires rise and fall. It saw nations trust in peace, only to inherit ruins. And now it walks among us. It whispers in our own age, repeating the same warning. When you hear rulers speak of peace, remember, their armies are already on the march. So I ask you, do we not hear those same promises today? Does this cycle not repeat once more? For history always speaks the same truth. Peace in the mouths of the mighty is not the end of war, but its prelude. Not tranquility, but a pause. Not truth, but the greatest deception. And here we set the bridge to the next episode. For in the words of the Apostle Paul, we find the climax of this paradox. When they say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes. This passage becomes the key that ties prophecy, history, and the present into one. So remember, the shadow always follows the promise. And when rulers speak of peace, look closer. For you may already be standing at the edge of war. There are words that cut through silence across centuries, like thunder striking a clear sky. The Apostle Paul wrote to the Thessalonians. When they say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes. Listen to these lines. They sound not like a promise, but like a sentence. Not reassurance, but a warning bell. Strange, isn't it, that the very words peace and safety in Scripture are not hope, but the code of impending war? Picture the first century. Young Christians, persecuted and afraid, read Paul's letter. They expected comfort, encouragement. But Paul wrote, "Peace and safety is no sign of stability. It is the signal of disaster. The same trap into which nations have always fallen." Here a new archetype appears, the child symbol. Her voice is small, yet it pierces the crowd. Like the child in the tale who first cried out that the emperor was naked. Amid loud speeches and solemn declarations, she asks, "Why do we trust these words? Why are they so sweet?" The child symbol is our conscience. It whispers that promises of peace from the powerful always hide another meaning. Paul uses another image. Destruction comes as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. A fearful and majestic image at once. Birth comes suddenly, and the pain cannot be stopped. So it is with war that hides behind the word peace. It always arrives unexpectedly, when people least expect it. And does this not match our own age? We live in a time of international alliances, global treaties, endless conferences. Every year leaders proclaim a new order, universal security, global peace. Their words sound beautiful, memorable, quotable. But beneath them tension grows. Behind the diplomats, factories forge weapons. While parliaments speak of safety, armies gather on the borders. History tells us, it is precisely when nations most believe in peace that they are least prepared for war. This is the cruel irony of prophecy. Words soothe the soul, and so make it vulnerable. That is when the enemy comes, like a thief in the night. This is why Paul warned them. And this is why we must listen now. Picture a modern scene. A grand hall, cameras flashing, applause thundering. World leaders sign an agreement, headlines shout. Peace and safety declared. But elsewhere missiles are quietly launched. Deep underground engineers build nuclear weapons. In darkness, routes of invasion are mapped. There it is, prophecy unfolding. History repeating. The words peace and safety ring like a bell of awakening. Here we feel the deepest conflict. On one side, the human longing for peace. It is real, pure, like a child wishing to sleep without fear. On the other, the brutal reality of a world that turns peace into a weapon. Between these two, tragedy is born. The child symbol reminds us, never trust words without testing hearts. Peace proclaimed loudly but without truth always proves false. Think of us now. We live in an age where news brings threats and promises of peace in the same breath. We see diplomatic smiles, but read headlines of rearmament. We hear pledges of stability, yet know the world stands on the edge. And I must ask you the question that shakes the soul. Could we be that last generation Paul spoke of? For his words sound as though written for our time. Humanity has never been so globally connected, and never so fragile. Promises of peace ring louder than ever. And yet the threat of sudden catastrophe looms over all. This is the mystery of the prophecy. It is not merely prediction, it reveals the very logic of history. Peace in the mouths of nations becomes the sign of war. Safety in the speeches of rulers becomes the signal of danger. When we understand this, we see reality differently. We no longer follow words blindly. We search deeper. We ask, what hides behind these promises? Who benefits from this peace? And why now, when peace is shouted so loudly, does the world feel most fragile? That is the power of prophecy. It does not give easy answers. It forces us to look into the dark and recognize that words do not always mean what they say. So I leave you with this image. A hall filled with applause, the words peace and safety proclaimed. Cameras flash, leaders smile. But in the corner stands the child. Silent. She looks at you, as if asking, do you truly believe these words? Her silence is louder than every speech. For the next episode will show us, the 20th century has already proven this prophecy. Every time peace was signed on paper, ruin was already at the door. I stand among ancient ruins. The silence is so deep it feels as if even the wind is afraid to disturb it. And suddenly, through the cracked stones and hollow walls, I hear a voice. Not a scream, not a whisper, but an echo. The echo of prophecy, when they say, peace, peace, then sudden destruction comes. The words strike like a blow to the heart. Isn't that exactly what we hear today? In the speeches, in the news, in the signatures on polished documents? But I ask you, can true peace be spoken by those whose hands still hold the sword? Can calm ever grow from hearts consumed by greed and power? Out of the ruins, figures rise. I see a ruler lifting his hand, promising a golden age of peace. His voice is gentle, almost tender. Yet behind his throne I see another shadow, the cold, looming ranks of armies already waiting. Then a prophet appears, warning, this peace is no gift, it is a snare. 4. When the skies fill with white doves, it will not be hope they bring, only wings wide enough to hide the glow of war on the horizon. The voice from the ruins grows clearer, wars are not born when swords are drawn. They are born when souls are deceived, lulled by sweet words. And I feel the truth pierce me. That is the great illusion. We are offered comfort so that we will drop our guard. We are soothed with slogans of peace, only to be led into greater conflict. History whispers the same warning. The peace treaties of the last century, the kind signed in Munich in 1938, did not silence the cannons. They only delayed them. And the ruins themselves seem to remember. I see symbols rising all around me, a dove turning black, an olive wreath bursting into flames, a hand offering a branch while its shadow clutches a dagger. And I wonder, what if peace itself is the disguise? What if the real purpose is hidden beneath the mask? The shadow from the desert returns. It has no face, only emptiness where a face should be. Its voice is faint, yet it cuts to the bone. They will speak of peace to make you defenseless. And when you lay down your arms, their war will begin. And I ask myself, are we doomed to repeat the same mistake? To trust the words, and ignore the heart? Can humanity recognize deception when it wears the sacred mask of peace? This is not just a story of the past. It feels like a code, buried in scripture, now speaking through today's headlines. As if the world itself stands on the edge, caught between promises of calm and the shuffle of armies already moving in the dark. I pause. And I turn to you, listener. Are you ready to face the most dangerous question of all? Could it be that today's slogans of peace are the prologue to the greatest war in history? The voice from the ruins speaks plainly. The peace that sounds like a sweet song may awaken the world in blood. I see a dream. The world lies under a heavy veil, as if history itself has frozen. Suddenly, the sky splits open with light. Out of the radiance a figure appears, tall, majestic, not touching the ground. Yet every stone and every tree trembles at its presence. This is the Watcher Angel. His eyes blaze like rivers of fire, reflecting both past and future. In his hands is a scroll, not ordinary, but sealed. 7 seals keep it closed, each burning with a sign, a sword, a scale, a horse, a trumpet, a star, a shadow, and finally, silence. I realize this scroll is the story of the world itself. And while it remains shut, we know neither our path nor our destiny. The angel speaks, his voice rolling like thunder across the heavens. No one can break the seals except the one who has overcome. Yet each of them already trembles, ready to fall. And with every seal broken, the world will plunge deeper into the mystery of time. Visions rise around him. When he touches the first seal, a rider appears on a white horse. His crown shines, yet in his hand is a bow. He looks as if he comes in peace, but his eyes are cold as steel. And I remember, we have seen this before, a false peace that hides conquest. The second seal breaks, and a rider on a red horse thunders forth. He wields a sword that makes the earth itself tremble. He is war, brother against brother, nation against nation, turning people into ashes. And the angel's voice echoes, "This is the price of counterfeit peace." The third seal cracks, and a rider on a black horse emerges. In his hand are scales. The voice declares, "Measure for measure. Bread will become a luxury, water a treasure. War steals not only life, but the ground beneath your feet." The fourth seal opens, and from the shadows rides a pale horse. Its rider's name is Death, and Hell follows close behind. A chill runs through me, for I know this is not only a vision. These are the stages humanity has walked before and will walk again. But the scroll is not yet finished. The fifth seal opens, and I see the souls of martyrs, those who died for truth. They cry out, "How long, O Lord, until you judge and avenge our blood?" Their voices rise like wind through a midnight desert. The angel answers, "Not yet." The number of those who will follow the same path must be fulfilled. The sixth seal shatters, and the heavens convulse. The sun turns black, the moon blood red, stars fall from the sky. This is no longer history, it is the cosmos itself groaning. And the nations cry out in terror, "Who can stand?" Finally, the seventh seal. When it breaks, there is no sound, no cry, no thunder. Only silence. Silence so vast it swallows the world. A silence more fearful than any storm. It is the pause before the unknown. The watcher angel closes the scroll and fixes his gaze on me. His words are not prophecy, they are judgment. All the seals will be broken again in the final days. Humanity will walk the same path, from false peace to war, from famine to death. Only those who see through the words will understand the meaning of these signs. The visions dissolve, but their weight remains in me. This is no dream. It is a key to our present. 4. The first seals may already be stirring, and the world has barely noticed. And so I leave you with this question. If the watcher angel has already lifted the scroll, are we ready for what is written inside? For the seals are not distant myth. They are our reality, already unfolding. The stage shifts to the present. We see peace talks broadcast on every screen, grand declarations made at global summits, and leaders promising a new world order. Words of calm echo across parliaments and conferences. Nations exhale with relief, believing that the future has been secured. But beneath the polished speeches, tension grows like fire under the floorboards. Behind the handshakes and signatures, new weapons are forged, alliances tighten, armies move silently in the night. The word peace becomes a curtain, hiding the storm that gathers just beyond the horizon. And in this silence, the shadow from the desert returns. Its whisper is as old as empires, promises of peace are the oldest disguise of war. The figure is faceless, yet its presence chills the air. It reminds us that every declaration of stability can be a lullaby meant to put nations to sleep while danger sharpens its blade. Look closely at the contrast. Cameras flash, agreements are signed, applause fills the air. The headlines proclaim, peace at last. Security assured. But beneath it all lies unease. It is the same paradox spoken by prophets: when the world hears the word peace, destruction is already on its way. This is the great deception of today. Not ancient history, not distant prophecy, but our moment. The illusion is stronger than ever because it is amplified by technology, by media, by voices that repeat it until it feels true. And yet, truth is buried just beneath the surface. The shadow whispers again, peace is the mask of conflict. And the louder they shout it, the closer the storm. So I ask you, listener, do you still believe the promise? Or can you hear the warning hidden in the silence between their words? I walk across scorched earth. Around me lie fragments of what once were homes, voices, lives. The silence here is deafening. Yet in this silence, a terrible truth resounds. Peace did not save the city. It betrayed it. This is the most painful paradox. After peace treaties, after solemn promises, after applause in great halls, ruins remain. Not safety, but ashes. Not joy, but mourning. History itself testifies, false peace does not prevent war, it only multiplies destruction. I see before me an ancient symbol, the broken temple. It once shone with gold, its walls reflected the sun. People believed it would stand forever. But when they shouted peace, peace, the enemy was already at the gates. And soon nothing was left but stones soaked with tears. This image echoes through the centuries. After every war, rulers promised that this one was the last. Never again, they swore. But each time, the world rebuilt walls of hope, only to watch them collapse once more. Every eternal peace proved to be only an interlude. The archetype of this episode is the witness. He does not argue, does not cry out. He simply walks among the ruins and points. Here was a school. Here was a marketplace. Here children once played. Here mothers once sang lullabies. And every gesture says more than 1,000 words, this was the price of believing in false peace. The ruins do not lie. They testify more loudly than monuments. For every broken wall whispers, they believed promises. They trusted slogans. And this is what remains. I ask myself, are we not building the same ruins today? Are we not once again trusting words, instead of truth? Every time I hear stability, security, a new future, I remember these ruins. And I know, the world has not changed. But amid this devastation there is also another meaning. The ruins do not only accuse, they also teach. They remind us that true peace cannot be built on deception. That only truth can preserve, not sweet words. That only justice can guard, not treaties. In this episode, we come to the culmination, the ruins after peace are the final witness. No historian, no prophet, no sermon speaks louder than broken cities. They are the living proof that when humanity trades truth for comfort, the price is death. And so I ask you, listener, when you hear the word peace today, will you remember the ruins? Will you dare to look at the stones and hear their warning? Or will you close your eyes again, believing promises sweeter than truth? For the ruins are not only of the past. They stand as a mirror of our future. And the question burns. Will we learn from their silence, or repeat their fate? The night grows silent. The city sleeps, but I still hear the echo of those words. Peace and safety. And suddenly I understand, this phrase is not comfort. It is the final warning. The guardian's voice fades into a whisper. When next you hear the words peace and safety, ask yourself, is it a promise, or is it a prophecy? Because the greatest deception of all time is not war, it is the illusion of peace. For peace that is spoken only with lips, while hearts remain full of hatred, will always awaken the storm. The unspoken truth is this: humanity seeks comfort in words, but salvation lies only in truth. And truth is never soft. It cuts, it burns, but it reveals the only path that saves. So when the crowd applauds the promise of peace, remember, the voice of prophecy still speaks. It warns us even now. And its question lingers like an echo in the dark. When the world once again says, peace, peace, will you believe the words? Or will you be ready for what follows?